Welcome to episode 3 of the Stafford Sheridan podcast. Today my special guest is Will Bradham. Will and I drove over to Roy's store the other day to do a review for the gas station review that I do. And we decided to use that time in the truck to record our podcast. I hope you don't mind the highway noise. I don't think it's too bad. It actually turned out pretty good. But you're going to really enjoy this podcast. Will is a serial entrepreneur. He owns Lenny's Sub Shops in Cleveland. He owns Right at Home Healthcare. And he also owns Delta Made. So everything he does seems to work. I mean, if he I'm not going to say it turns to gold, but Will does a really good job. So I've asked Will a lot of questions about business over the years, and I thought it was time to share that with you as well. We had a great time doing this podcast. We talk about everything from 80s television shows all the way to muscle cars and politics. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hang on to your seat. Here it is, Will Bradham and Stafford Sheridan, the Stafford Sheridan podcast. It's a really expensive recording booth, by the way.
It's super
made
expensive.
by Chevrolet. It's the Silverado model.
Yeah, most expensive, and it's very comfortable too, by the way. And I don't have to drive, which is rare.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work out with me focusing on the road, but I tend to think really well when I'm driving, so hopefully...
I want you to focus on the road. That's my main concern right now.
Well, it's 4-lane, that helps. So I've got 2 lanes I can ride in.
At least 2.
At least 2.
And a median.
And a median and a pretty nice shoulder. We're on Highway 82, and I'm with Will Bradham, by the way. Which I'll come in and cut a nice little intro for you.
Yeah.
You know, laying out all your accolades.
Like, I'd like to welcome probably one of the most intriguing men on the planet, Will Bradham.
Well, let's not go that far.
I was telling one of my friends today, I said, I'm going to start identifying as Mr. Miyagi, so I want to be referred to as Sensei.
Sensei.
What do you think? I think it's a good... My dad told me I could be whatever I wanted to be. I want to be a sensei.
So have you been watching Cobra Kai?
It's so good.
My wife...
How do you grow up? Literally, that was what, 80s when that came out? The first Karate Kid?
So do you find yourself liking the bad guy now more? And when I say bad guy, you know, the what's his name?
Joey Lawrence. I mean,
yeah.
Not Joey Lawrence. What's his name?
But I know we're talking about the same person.
Right.
He's so stuck in the 80s, and I love it.
He's got the Firebird, which is awesome.
Yes.
It reminds me of Dwight on Dwight's got that Trans Am, which
on The Office,
which is awesome. But he's got that.
And he drinks Coors.
He drinks Coors Banquet.
Banquet, yes.
Which is impressive.
He says, I don't want the Coors Light, I wanted the Banquet.
Right, I don't want the sissy beer. I need to taste Coors Light. And in the bottles, too, which is really cool, because I haven't seen that in a long time. But,
me either.
And, you know, he's just a slob, but you feel sorry for him because he's down on his luck. And there was a very interesting thing on YouTube. I saw this where this guy, he makes like this hour-long presentation as to why Daniel LaRusso is the bad guy.
No, I've seen that.
From the beginning, he makes it out to be like he went and stole his girlfriend.
He did.
He went and picked a fight with him. He hit him in the nose for no reason. And then he showered him in the bathroom.
And LaRusso has a little bit of an air about him in this new one.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Like, I'm a little bit better than you.
Yeah. Well, he's got that big dealership, and, you know, he's made he's made this great life for himself. And then to take it away from Lawrence, he looks at him and is like, well, you started a dojo up, I'm going to start one too. I mean, like, when does you look at it and go, when does he stop messing with this guy? You beat him.
And have you watched all of season 3?
Oh, yeah, bro.
So I hadn't watched it all, so I've just watched
I don't want to ruin it for you then.
Yeah, don't ruin it for me, but I've just watched enough where it's like they have this on-again, off-again friendship now, where they team up and they're going to do something good, and then they get pissed off at each other by the end of the day.
Well, then you're going to love season 3, but it's like they like each other, and they kind of respect each other, and they're almost kind of the same person.
They really are.
But they hate each other.
Well, it's like they hadn't realized it yet at the point I'm at. You know, you keep hoping that they'll team up against the real bad guy.
Yeah.
You know. I'm
glad we're in our 40s and we're talking about this.
I know it.
It's like they remade Saved by the Bell with karate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's such a little teenage movie that you can't wait for it to come on in the week, and there's the good guys and the bad guys and
it's so stupid in a way, because at the beginning of season 3, and it's spoiler alert for those who've not seen it, but when they're on the news talking about these karate gangs and all this, you're like, how stupid is this? Because somebody's parents are paying for these kids to go.
Well, the one thing I laughed about was when they were in there, and again, spoiler alert, so mute this if you need to, but when they're talking about, they go to the council to talk about reenacting or bringing back the Hill Valley tournament. And so they've got LaRusso in there, and they've got Lawrence in there.
By bringing him back to the tournament, letting
Cobra Kai compete. Yeah. Right.
Which was like season 1.
Right. So they're in there, and that one black guy goes, I didn't even know karate was a thing anymore. I thought that died off in the 80s. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because
it did.
Nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what strikes me as funny, just because of my business mind, the way it works. You look in his building, and you're figuring, okay, he's got a pretty sizable building in California. That building has got to be having a rent, and you hear the guy say about the rent price.
I thought the same thing, dude.
It's got to be $4,000 a month. He's got
5 students.
Let's say top end. When his old sensei comes in, he's got top end 20 students. They're all paying what, $50 a month? I mean,
no, I thought the same thing.
He's got $1,000 a month to work with, and you think he just took over Google. Like he's acting like, I've got all this money and I'm fixing to clean up the house and I've got a brand new Dodge Challenger out front and I painted it. He painted it himself, by the way, which is impressive because the paint scheme on that Dodge Challenger is a $10,000 paint job. Not to mention the fact that he's got Cobra Kai stickers and trim on it. It looks immaculate. You look at that car.
Then they go to the festival, and it's like a halftime show at the Super Bowl.
You know what it reminded me of? Do you remember Revenge of the Nerds?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Revenge of the Nerds where they had to win the Greek festival to become the head of the Greek system? And the Alpha Betas come out. They do the little cheerleader football thing. You remember that?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden the lights go out and they come on to the Revenge of the Nerd side, and the Tri-Lambs and the Omega Moos have that synthesizer and they're all out there playing and stuff, and everybody goes crazy. It reminded me of that because LaRusso's little group, it was like he was fixing to get to the climax. I'm chopping again, spoiler alert, I'm chopping through these 4 or 5 pieces of ice, and all of a sudden the lights go out.
Yeah.
And they pop up on Cobra Kai, and Cobra Kai comes out like a bunch of badasses. And you just see
it really was cool.
You can just see him get deflated. And it's like, this is the Revenge of the Nerds series, the scene.
So what's the best 80s movie that needs to be remade, or TV show?
See, I don't think 80s movies need to be. This is. I like this because it's not a remake. It is a continuation.
Well, and I guess not remade, but that's what I mean. That we need to pick that back up and see where it is.
All
now.
right, so let's take, for instance, like one of my all-time favorite movies is Ghostbusters. I loved Ghostbusters.
Have you seen the brand new one? Or is it out yet?
You talking about the one with all the women that?
No, there's a new one coming where it does the same thing as this Cobra Kai, and it picks up modern times, and these kids find the old car, and they go see their granddaddy, which is one of the original Ghostbusters.
Well, Egon's dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Egon's dead. I'm not sure about.
Well, Bill Murray's not in this. I know that, and he is the Ghostbuster.
Well, see, then you've got Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and golly, what was the? What was the black guy's name that drove it?
I don't even know, but I think it's Dan Aykroyd is who's the granddaddy in this, and they find this old. They find all the ghosts and let them out, all the ghosts that they have caught or something like that. So the premise looks actually kind of good because it is a continuation. It's like, okay, all this stuff really did happen back in the 80s, and now they've messed around and let all these ghosts
that
out.
may be okay. I
hadn't seen the girls, and I couldn't.
I'll probably watch it. It was unbelievably bad.
Well, there was all this talk about
Kristen Wiig's in it, and I think she's something about her. I love Kristen Wiig, and I think she's
she's so funny.
She's so good looking. And I just watched that new Wonder Woman movie, and she was in it, and she's smoking it. But
well, that's what you look at. Everybody said, well, people just don't like. Why do people not like movies with women in it? But then Wonder Woman's a huge success.
It's not that you don't like movies with women in it.
So I disagree with that.
They took a franchise, which was the Ghostbusters. You can say it's stupid or whatever. I thought they were fantastic movies, and how do you not like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd?
Bill Murray is so good.
Right, I love Bill Murray. So you take that, and I remember my dad, Will Bradham, who wouldn't have been caught dead in a movie theater. I begged him to take me to see Ghostbusters. I guess I was probably 5 or 6. He took me to the Clarksdale movie theater, the showcase, and we went in there. And you remember that part in the very first one where they get called to the library and they go downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
There's goo everywhere, and they see this
old
floating librarian. And when she turns around and says shush, I'm getting chill bumps thinking about it right now. She says shush. She turns around and looks at him and goes, "Rah!" I looked at my dad and I said, "We got to go." I was scared to death. I had nightmares. But that was my first movie experience in movie theater was Ghostbusters. So I have an affinity for it. Because I remember after I got out of there, it was kind of like you had that FOMO instance where you had fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I remember we were on the way home, and I'm like, "Dadgummit, Will, why couldn't you have just sucked it up and watched the rest of the movie?" Because then I had to wait for like years to see it because there was no on demand or anything. You know, I had to wait for it to come out on
wasn't even a DVD.
Right.
I mean,
Dad had a
VHS.
We had a Betamax.
Yeah,
my dad was ahead of the times. He was like, "Betamax is the new deal." I was like, "No, it's not."
Have you followed Dan Aykroyd lately?
No.
You know he's lost his mind.
Well,
so he believes in we talked about conspiracy theories before we turned the thing on. He believes in aliens. He believes in Bigfoot. He believes in the Mothman. He believes in the crystal skulls are real. Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is. He believes in all of it. And his whole thing is, well, why would these people lie? You know, why would he? And he's like, if the person's believable, I believe him. I mean, he believes all of it. And he even has a tequila now. You know that Crystal Skull tequila?
Yeah.
That's Dan Aykroyd's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But he did that because he believes all those crystal skulls were made by aliens. He's out there, brother. It's fun to listen to him, actually.
You know, you think about it, though, Dan Aykroyd is at that point in life, though, he doesn't have to give a shit anymore.
No, he does not.
You know what I mean?
No, he really
he's
does.
kind of at that point, like, I'm one of the most recognized actors ever. He's been in everything.
So
Good,
screw
bad, ugly, he's been in it. And he's always great. So, you know, why... I mean, does he care? I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, no, he doesn't give
You're kind of at that level
Let me just put it to you this way. He does not give a damn.
Well, right. Why would you? And I aspire to get to that level in my life where I can just not give a shit about anything. You know, to where you're at that point where, like, you know, somebody goes, Will Bradham's nuts. You think Will cares? He doesn't. And I'm almost there. I feel like I'm getting there. But, you know, but back to Cobra Kai, it's so good. And if you... There's nobody on this planet that has seen Karate Kid.
The original.
And would say, that's a terrible movie. You watched it. It's like The Goonies.
Yeah.
You watched it. It's fantastic. If The Goonies comes on right now, I don't care what I'm doing. I'll drop what I'm doing and watch the whole damn thing. I love it. It's just, to me, you know, I had this conversation with somebody. The 80s movies were, and curse words are some of my favorite words in the whole wide world.
Me too.
You know, I know when to turn it off. I know when to turn it on. I love the word
Same.
And so, you know, you would think I gravitate towards movies and shows that are full of that. And I don't. I enjoyed the 80s movies because they were funny. Bottom line, they were all of them to me were good, had a good plot to them. And there wasn't a lot of cursing in it. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of cursing in it. There wasn't a lot of just everything that we see now, and not to get philosophical or anything here, but I believe, and I hope people would agree with me, we've gotten so desensitized to. It's like they're trying to one up themselves.
I know,
right?
That's for sure what happened.
Let me make it raunchier. Let me put more sex in it. Let me put more curse words in it.
Has that been happening since the beginning of time, though?
I think so, but...
Because even things that were not curse words... Have you seen History of Swear Words?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, like, I think about that all the time. There's actually a swear word Bible or something like that that's basically the same thing. It's a book.
Yeah.
But it talks about how, like, taking God's name in vain used to mean something totally different than what it means today.
Well,
literally, if you talked about God in public, you were doing it for vanity's sake. Or if you prayed in public, you did it for vanity's sake. And that was the same thing. Like you see these, and I'm not against football players wearing 316 on their face, because I think it was kind of cool. But in medieval times, if you had done something like that, they would say, well, you didn't do that for God's glory, you did that for yours.
It's self-promotion.
Self-promotion, and that was considered taking God's name in vain. And well, now it's totally different. We think about GD as taking God's name in vain.
It's one of the, you don't say it.
No.
Well, you know, and I like what they said on the history of swear words, where you come to the conclusion that damn is the only curse word.
Right.
Whereas, because you're cursing, you know, you say the words, I damn you to hell.
It's
well, you are
damned,
cursing them to hell.
Yeah.
Right. So, but using the other words, they've all got some kind of a
Other meaning
history to it, and we won't go through those, obviously. But
swear words on Netflix, by the way. If you're
it's
listening, check it out. You'll thank me later.
Nicolas Cage. People hate Nicolas Cage, but I like him because
he is what he is.
He's literally all the same every movie. You don't have to even wonder how he's going to be in a movie.
Have you seen the new Nicolas Cage movie coming out, the horror movie, where he gets suckered into going into this? He has a flat, and the guy says, "I'll fix your car, but you got to clean this place up for me," because he has no money. And so he stays, and they lock him in there with these, I don't know, these animatronic things that come to life and try to kill him. And halfway through the movie, they go, wait a minute, you've messed up. They're not in there. He's not in there locked in with them. They're in there locked in with him. And he's like taking them all out. He's like Rambo. And I'm like, this could either be the worst movie ever or the absolute best Nicolas Cage movie that's ever been made.
Well, he has got a lineage of movies that are awful, like Con Air. It's so bad.
That you love it.
The Rock with Sean Connery. You know,
I actually like that movie.
You know, Sean Connery had to be sitting there going, I have to work with this moron. You know, just unpolished.
I love The Rock.
But you got Sean Connery, 007. Fantastic. Sir Sean Connery. He's pretty well respected, too, because he's a knight. He's been knighted by the Queen of England. And he's got to work with Nicolas Cage, who literally sounds the same in every movie he's ever been in. He's been in some great movies, though.
You know that's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew?
Who, Nicolas Cage is?
Yeah, he changed his name. His last name's actually Coppola.
What was the movie? Was it Leaving Las Vegas that he was in, where he was the drunk? And he was in there with
Leaving Las Vegas and Raising Arizona.
Raising Arizona was a phenomenal movie. It was so stupid.
With him with the pantyhose
good.
on, going into those places. I'll take all the cash money and these Pampers right here.
I'm trying to think who was that beautiful blonde he was in Leaving Las Vegas.
I don't even remember now.
Remember, she was the prostitute.
Yeah,
and he was just a drunk. You know, he makes his movies are either he's so good that you can't help but watch it, or he's so terrible that you can't help but watch it. But there's no in between. He's not like a mediocre actor. He's either absolutely terrible or phenomenal in his movies. And you know, Con Air, just one of them where I just looked at it and went, this is so stupid.
But I watched the whole thing.
But you know, I mean, he's getting paid millions of dollars to do those movies.
So do you think, you know, let me ask you this on kind of a more serious note.
Yes, sir.
People don't know this side of you, even though we do the video every year at Christmas, but they don't know you seem so serious all the time, and they don't know this very lighthearted side of you. Do they? Do you think people don't?
I don't. And I'm going to say this, and there are people out there that will agree with this. People think I'm an asshole. And I go,
well,
really?
I wasn't going to say that, but that's what I'm getting at.
But really, I mean, you know, I'm a little more grizzled than I used to be. I've been through some rough stuff more recently in my life. And I think anybody that, and you can attest to this, anybody that deals with the general public on a daily basis, most people are genuinely good people. They are. I believe that. Then you have people that are, if you gave them $1 million, their first words out of their mouth would be, but I have to pay taxes on it. They're always going to be negative. And I tell people this, I am, I'll have somebody, I can't remember, this is not too long ago, somebody said, man, I thought you were just an asshole. And I went, no.
I've had people say that to me before. The more I'm on camera, the less I get that.
Yeah.
But I had somebody from Drew actually say that to their wife, and she came back and told me. They were like, I thought Staff Sherman was an asshole, but something happened that, long story, he hung out with me for about 10 minutes. And he was like, he's not an asshole at all. And I'm like,
I think people get a perception or arrogant. And I'm going, do I have an ego? Probably. I feel like I've been successful enough. I've started.
I don't think you can start your own businesses and not have a little bit of an ego.
Well, I had somebody tell me this one time. He said it's not cocky to be confident. It's not cocky to be confident as long as you can back it up. So
Bear Bryant used to say it ain't bragging if you can do it.
Exactly. So it's not that I feel like I don't have that air, and I'm telling you, I really try to work on it because I know that sometimes I walk around and I've got a disgruntled look on my face, or
you have a very serious look on your face a lot of times.
I have a lot of stuff going on, and believe me, there's not saying there's a whole lot between these two ears, but it's always churning. So if I'm not paying attention, or if I don't wave or smile at you or whatever, I promise you, I'm thinking about something. It's nothing against you, but I think people that know me, I would hope that they like me and go, Will's just a genuine dude. Do I like to have fun? You bet your ass I do, man. Believe me, there's nothing I hate worse than conflict or turmoil. I don't like it. I don't like to be confrontational about things. But, again, when you deal with the general public, and some of them can be as nasty and as ruthless and as mean as humanly possible, they don't care what you do. You can do 100 good things and one bad, and they will talk about that one bad thing forever. And
I get in trouble at the restaurant all the time because I'll be in the office, and you've been in my restaurant offices in the back. I'll be in the office thinking about something, working on something, and I'll come up front and ask Bryce a question because she helps me with books, and then I'll turn around and go back to back, and she'll be, Will said hey, and you didn't say hey to him. And I'm like, I didn't even hear it because I'm so focused. There are times when I really am laser focused and I miss, and I don't know how often I miss somebody and they're just like, oh, he's just an asshole, and I just never even acknowledge them because I didn't hear them.
The people that work for me, the closest people that work for me in my office, and my friends and my family, they all know me as a huge smartass, sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's like a second language to me, but I genuinely care about everybody I come in contact with. Now, are there people that I don't care for as far as like or would want to be around? Absolutely. I think that's everybody. But genuinely, I try to live my life and again, I'm not trying to self-grandize myself like I'm some great being or anything. I'm not. But I try to do as much good as I can for as many people as I can. And I always say this, my focus is always going to be on the people that stood by me or encouraged me to do good things or to do things, period. And I don't harbor hatred or dislike so much for people that don't, but there are those people out there, man, that this as well as I do. They want to see you fail.
For sure.
No matter what you do or who you're doing something for or who you're helping, they want to see that fail because they just are genuine, miserable people, and they don't want to see you have any success in life. And, to those people,
social media is a perfect example of that.
I go and give talks at schools and universities, and one of my main things is I talk about social media. And I use it for advertising, and I use it for personal too. And I think it is the best thing that's happened to humanity because we're connected.
Yeah.
In ways that we never could be. I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened because
I am
we're
going
connected.
the right way, by the way, right? Roy's
hope so,
store is on
yeah.
the other side of Greenville. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's over near Lakeville, Washington. Yeah, we're in the right direction.
Yes.
But I think it's the
That's
worst
not
thing.
something that happens much on podcasts that I have to stop and ask for directions.
No, and if you want me to cut on my Syria or my
No, I think I know.
Hey.
Isn't there a sign like on Highway 1 over here or something with a worm on it or something like that?
as the person driving who planned this trip out, I would hope you know where in the hell we're going.
Never been to Roy's store.
We can always stop over here at Geno's and get a hamburger. I love Geno's.
Yeah, Geno's is good.
Get a number 2 chili cheese, man. It's magical. But back to Facebook, it scares me because to me there's far more negative that comes out of social media than there is positive. And kids are addicted to it. Grown-ups are addicted to it.
Our parents are addicted to it. That's what blows my mind.
Addicted to it.
And really addicted. And there was the greatest meme I think I've ever seen. It said, social media, Facebook has turned our parents into what they said video games would turn us into. I mean, because it's like my parents' generation and the baby boomers are the ones that put out the most negativity. And that's why, like, my 2 daughters could care less about Facebook because they're kind of done with that, with the negativity.
Yeah.
My youngest deleted it. She said, I don't even want Facebook anymore because I don't really care anything about all that. She's 13 and she's TikTok and Instagram is all she does. But what I think about every time I post, and I always, when you talk about speaking, when I speak to groups, I say, you can influence the outer world, but you cannot control it. But you have total control of yourself and what you say and do.
Yep. And
I always think the thing about this whole Facebook and social, and it's all social. Well, the podcasts are social. Everything's social now. I always think that my grandkids will see this.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I want them to know about me? And so that's why everybody says you're always so positive on social media. And that's the reason. I mean, like, I know somebody's going to go back one day and collate this, and they're going to view it through their modern lens and the context of the world that day. And they're going to look back at some of the stuff we're doing as a society and go, what the hell were they thinking? Well, so I just kind of avoid those subjects when I'm on social media.
It's like finding your grandfather's journal.
Right.
They're going to find this and go,
and that can be a beautiful thing. Like, I think about that as a positive. I'm like, I really want them to find this.
Yeah.
Their granddad eating fried chicken off a tailgate. That's going to be, they're going to have so much fun watching that.
Because most kids, and I can say this for myself with 100% certainty. I didn't know either one of my grandfathers. Didn't know them. One of them died long before I was ever a thought. Not involved in my mother's life at all, so I never knew him. I met him one time, and could have cared less if I met him. I thought he was a piece of shit for leaving my grandmother and 4 children, and he was a piece of shit. But so I didn't have that. But I think about what if I had a way that I could learn about those people? Because the only way we learn about those people is, did they leave a journal? Did they take pictures? Which would have been few. Did they, or what you gather from your parents'
stories
about them. But now it's all digital. So, somebody can go back and look and see something I posted 10 years ago.
Right.
This guy's a lunatic. Or he's a lot of fun, or whatever. John Armstrong posted a picture of me when I was wearing a Buddy the Elf costume. It's like 9 years ago. I didn't even think about that, but I go, the internet's forever.
Well, and like we're not going to talk politics, but the total politics of today, we just don't know if this is what's going on at today's inauguration day. But we don't know if this is a blip on the radar, if we're going to look back and this was just a blip, or is today a huge deal that we're all going to want to look back on. And we don't know, but future generations will. So, like, are they going to look back and go, like you said, these people are lunatics?
Yeah.
Or, so I've avoided that.
It's kind of like we analyze. I love history. I absolutely love history. And so the way for us to analyze things that were pre-movie or picture is through books. And depending on the outcome of certain things,
Who wrote the damn book?
who wrote the book can set the tone of how that looked back then. So it might not have looked so great back then, but somebody wrote a book and said, I'm going to put my own spin on it. So, when you talk about fake news and fake news, we've had that going on since the beginning of time. That somebody wrote something and interpreted it their way with their bias.
Sure they did.
What I tell kids now is, especially with Facebook and the internet and everything else, doing something that you think is cool now will not be very cool when you're sitting across the desk from somebody trying to get into law school or get a job.
It's not going to age well, maybe.
It's not going to age well when you're doing a keg stand and you get it on Instagram and you share it with all your friends, and then you're sitting in front of somebody at a desk trying to get a job, and they go, and every company searches this stuff out now. It is the first thing we do in my business.
Absolutely.
I go Google your name.
Absolutely, I do.
And it's,
I go to your Facebook page.
'cause you know why? If I do that, I don't even have to talk to you.
That's fine.
I don't have to talk to you. If I pull up your
what kind
Facebook
of person
page
they are.
and you've got a joint hanging out of your mouth, I go, is that really somebody that I want working here?
So do you look at the positivity of the types of posts they post?
I do, and I tell these kids all the time that it's not just you, it's your friends, and your friends can post stupid stuff, and that hurts you also, because if you're going to post something, you know what, post something that's good. You're helping out the Salvation Army. You went and did something with your church. You did something with your fraternity or sorority that was good. And leave all the other fun stuff. Hey, that's a memory you can suck back in the memory banks. You don't have to take a picture of that. But that goes back to my desensitizing of what we've done is we're looking for the sensational, right?
Sure. You're looking for likes.
You're not, exactly, because it's a stimulus for us now.
What's an immediate gratification of whether you were popular or not, and that's dangerous. The one thing
But
I think
it has a negative adverse to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you put something on there and people don't like it, how are these kids feeling now? They feel like nobody likes me. That's not the case. I mean, just because somebody didn't like a picture of what you had for dinner last night, I mean, and they're doing things to themselves or to other people, lashing out because they don't feel liked on social media. I could give a rat's ass. You know whose approval I need? My kids and the good Lord. And I'm not the most faithful Christian in the world, by any means. Wouldn't lie to you if I was. And anybody who says they are is a hypocrite, because they're lying to you.
Right.
That's the only approval I need. My children, my family, and close friends, and the good Lord above. That's all I need. I don't need 2,000 people on social media to tell me I did something good or I did something bad.
So I didn't know you were that big a classic car guy.
So my dad, Big Red, who I'm telling you, I'd give everything I own to have him back here to talk for an hour.
Oh, I feel the same way about mine.
He was very stern, great business guy, but he's one of those guys that grew up, and this will kind of preface this. My mother and my dad both grew up extremely poor. Dad probably worse than Mom. Dad was from Midnight, Mississippi, and they grew up poor, and Dad just didn't have anything. And so Dad went into the military for 8 years. He was in the Air Force, and when he got out, he worked for a tractor dealership for a little while, and then he opened up his own parts store and had his own parts farm supply store for 30 years until he died. But Dad was one of those, and unfortunately, I say fortunately or unfortunately, whatever, but I've inherited his traits of, if I've got money in my pocket, I don't have a problem giving it to somebody else, or I'm going to buy things I want.
Yeah.
And I don't think about, it sounds bad, I don't think about tomorrow. To me, I'm in better shape as far as investing, but when I see something I want, I'm like, Dad, I buy it. Dad was
It makes it hard to buy gifts for people like you.
My staff said the same thing.
I'm the same way.
It's obnoxious hard, because if I want it, I've already bought it.
Yeah.
If you give it to me and it was something that I did want, I didn't realize I wanted it until I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those, you did surprise me. And they've given me some, my staff is good as gold. They've given me some awesome things and that are just really cool things that I wouldn't think to do for myself. But Dad was just one of those guys, man. He'd give you the shirt off his back, but Dad grew up poor when he started making money, and Dad made a lot of money. And Dad bought what he wanted. So Dad was a big gun nut. He loved World War II guns. He had one of the largest collections. I could kill myself for selling that when I was 19, 20. My mother was scared to have all of it in the house. She knew people knew he had it.
Yeah.
And we got rid of it.
That makes sense.
And going back in time, I would like to go back in time to punch 20-year-old Will in the face for getting rid of it. But I collect guns. My dad was
So have you gone back and collected a lot of that same stuff?
I've tried. It's so hard because those were such collector items.
And that stuff just getting scarcer too.
It's scarce. Dad wasn't going out and buying Glocks.
Right.
Dad was going out and buying, Walthers and Colts, and he had every handgun that was used in World War II, at least one. Most of the long rifles that were legal to own, single shot rifles, things like that. But and Dad was a car guy. Dad had Mustangs out there, and I remember he had a 57 Chevrolet Cameo that he was working on. And Dad was a car guy, but he was a mechanic by trade. Dad knew.
So he liked tinkering on that stuff. I'm sure.
He got to that point, and we all get to that point in life where we don't want to do these things anymore.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't want to put in rice gates on the farm anymore.
He worked on airplanes. He had no desire to go back and spend hours on cars. He didn't have time for it. Dad was a worker. Dad worked. Dad wasn't one of those that went out in the front yard with me and threw the football for a couple hours. Dad was working.
No, I had the same childhood.
Dad loved me. He loved his kids. He'd do anything for you in the whole wide world. But Dad went to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he got off at 6 or 7 o'clock at night from the store. And when he got home, he had a bourbon. He smoked cigarettes like they were going out of style the next day, and he went to bed.
How many packs a day did your dad smoke?
Oh, God. 3, 4.
My dad was a pack every 4 hours. If he had a 16-hour day, he smoked 4 packs.
And that was the generation.
It was. And which just blows my mind. I'm like, how do you even smoke that many cigarettes? He didn't need but one match a day.
Did you ever smoke?
No.
Okay,
Never smoked.
So I started smoking cigarettes when I was
used to dip tobacco, believe it or not.
14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
I was smoking cigarettes.
I was dipping tobacco at 14, 15. Till I got in college and I quit.
I did tobacco when I would play like softball or something when I got a little bit older, because I obviously couldn't smoke on the field.
Yeah. Well, I never liked to smoke either. I never liked the smell of smoke.
I loved it. Oh, and now I can't stand it. The smell of smoke makes me violently ill now.
I'm the same way.
But, Dad was just one of those dudes that he was just a good dude, but he loved old cars.
So was his store in Clarksdale?
Yep.
Where was it?
It was on 49 South. If you pull off the highway and get on to 49, where you can see Hobson over there.
Yeah.
You make the little loop, come down 49 to go into Clarksdale toward Abe's.
Yeah, I know exactly where well, that's the way you come from Drew, so I can go through there.
There's a little Exxon station.
Yeah.
He was right next to it. There's a daycare there now. When we sold the business, a guy bought it, and then it all of a sudden burned down mysteriously.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years after we sold it to him. But
because we used to go there for farm stuff all the time in that area, because you had Mid-South Farm Supply right there.
We were right across the street from Mid-South Farm Supply.
All right.
Southside Parts.
Yeah.
He was there for... Dad was uneducated. That doesn't mean anything.
No, I understand.
He was a genius when it came to business. And I have documents where he had started or wanted to start an auto parts store called Cheap Auto Parts. And Cheap Auto Parts was before Auto Shack, now AutoZone, was ever a thought. Because that was the first mainstream corporate parts store. It was Auto Shack. And Auto Shack was known for selling, they don't do it anymore, but they were known for selling seconds. Stuff that didn't make the first run of inspection or whatever. It might be an alternator that just something wasn't right, but it would work.
Yeah.
Now, it may work for 2 weeks. It may work for 2 years. You just didn't know. And they sold them cheaply. And Dad had this design he came up with. It's called cheap auto parts, and it was going to be second runs. He could buy them cheap. He could sell them cheap. It's going to be a cash-only business. No credit, no cards, no, you come in here with cash money, which was genius. He never did it, but he was just a really good business guy. But
do you know what the experience I have a lot of times is I'll be doing something in business and go, oh, this is what my dad was trying to tell me, and even now I'm 40, almost 50 years old, 48 this year, but my dad, he was so good at accounting, and so he was a farmer, but what people didn't understand was he was really a books guy, which I'm not good at that kind of, I'm not even gonna say I'm not good at it. I loathe accounting.
It's awful.
It's like the bane of my existence a lot of times as a business person.
Most entrepreneurs, I don't know any entrepreneurs that sit here and go, man, I can't wait to sit down and do a balance sheet.
My dad loved it. He said, I would rather find $10,000 in that office than I would $10,000 out there in the field. And so I hired an accounting firm that does nothing but books for farmers, and I was using them for several years. And they said, we got this new thing we're going to do where we're going to weight your equipment based on what kind of crops you grow. So if you've got so many acres of cotton or so many acres of rice, we're going to put more of that equipment cost to them. And I said, my dad was doing that in 1984. Mm-hmm. He was so far ahead of himself. And I mean, he did the rent the same way and things like that. I mean, he was already weighting that equipment and the rent. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, why didn't I sit down and talk to him more about that kind of stuff? And I just didn't. We just didn't do that.
Well,
and that's my fault.
Well, and you got to have those people in business. And can I look at balance sheets and stuff? Absolutely.
So how do you overcome that as a business person? Like you and I are talking about this same thing. Like I wrestle with this all the time. Who does that for you? Do you have somebody you hire that does most of your balance sheets and that kind of thing, or do you sit down and do it?
My accountants. I mean, I know. I keep up with stuff differently, and I'm a little old school, but I keep even if it's on QuickBooks, I keep up with stuff on spreadsheets.
Gotcha.
It's archaic. It works for me.
I do my farm balance on spreadsheets. Is this our turn right here? That's not it. No, that's not it.
Are we on one?
Yes.
Okay. One should loop us around.
Well, there's a sign up here that says Roy Store, I think.
Okay, let's hope so. It's right on the lake.
Yeah. Because they sell bait and tackle and all that.
Absolutely, man.
You know what's so funny is, the other day I text you, and then Reed Abraham calls me and says, you know where you need to go is Roy Store. And I said, I just texted Will about going there. He said, I just left Will's office. Or he maybe did your order for Lenny's or something.
Yeah.
He's working for merchants now.
Okay, yep. I was, when you're talking about the business side of that, I mean, I can pull up anything and analyze it, but I like my spreadsheets because I break everything down.
You can change a number and it changes.
Right.
That's the beauty
I look at my sales for that week. I look at my payroll for that week. I know what my monthly expenses are on that business, give or take. And
so do you set all these spreadsheets up?
Oh yeah.
So you're more of a bookkeeper than you're letting on.
I love numbers, but when I say I'm bad at math, I mean so bad.
Sam actually pretty good at math. I can do math in my head, and I like numbers. I just don't like to sit down and actually do that methodical work.
It's not in my DNA. I'm too ADD or ADHD.
I am too. I can't sit down.
Something.
I will literally get to the point where I just have to shake my hands, like, oh my God, what's happening?
Like I like it all in order because I'm OCD, but I'm not going to be the person that puts it in order.
That's exactly the way
I can't sit there for more than 5 minutes and do it.
There's my sign with the worm on it. I'm not crazy.
And it's got an arrow point and it says 1 mile. That's good. So we know we got at least 60 seconds.
Yeah.
But technical difficulties.
I don't think it's going to matter. I'm just going to leave it right there in the floorboard.
All right.
You got to love, this is a unique thing. I'm going to be interested to see how this thing turns out.
Stafford, I can only say this. Once you put my name on it, it's probably going to be dog shit. You're I'm gonna listen to it probably once, and you'll listen to it a couple times for editing purposes, and then everybody else is gonna look at it and go, I cannot listen to these two assholes.
This will be episode 3.
Oh wow! It was episode podcast. 1 and 2.
So episode 1 was Will. I'm having trouble today.
Hi, I'm Will Bradham.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
It was Wright Thompson was episode 1, and episode 2 was me just talking about just me by myself talking about some stuff. And what's crazy is that I put it on YouTube as well as it'll be on all the usual spots. You can get it through Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or Spotify. I'm on Spotify and all that. So I've had a couple hundred downloads on those. But oddly enough, on YouTube, the second one I did was just me had 400 downloads.
Really?
Yeah, I really don't understand how that happened, because that's actually more than most any video I put on there. So, because YouTube, I don't have that many followers. I only have about 200 subscribers on YouTube. But somebody clearly got a hold of it and liked it and shared it in some form or fashion that went wild. I don't know really what happened.
What were you talking about?
Kind of the financial stuff I've been through in the last few years, and just some things that are hard to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've paid off a shit ton of debt in the last few years, and not because I was ready to pay that debt off, but because I really didn't have any choice anymore. And people have been on me about coming here to Roy's store, and it's not that far. I thought it was further off the highway than this, dude. I really did.
Well,
but it's not that far off.
See, and I used to make the loop, though. I would come down and go to Moranto's. When I had to, back then I had to run routes whenever I'd have a salesman.
They have the best potato logs I think I've had in the state of Mississippi.
Best thing he ever had. And I don't know if Mr. Moranto is still there.
He's not on. He has sold it.
Okay.
And it's sold again, and it's for sale right now. So I don't think, they say it's not as good as it used to be.
He would buy Buckhead, which was the creme de la creme back then, choice ribeyes.
Buckhead is still good.
And he would slice it about a, 1/4 inch thick, and he would grill it on his flat griddle.
Make a sandwich out of it?
Make a ribeye steak sandwich. You slap somebody with it, brother. It was so good. He would lather it. He'd go, "You want horseradish sauce?" And I would go, "You bet your ass I do."
They don't have that anymore.
Horseradish mayonnaise, just covering this thing, and some grilled onions, and it was every time I went there.
So I'll give you a good tip. Nails on Highway 82 between Winona and Eupora. And it's one of those things, it's been there forever. It's a barbecue place, gas station. But they make a steak sandwich and do it on a hamburger bun. And it is the manliest thing you've ever seen. It is just a little thin sliced ribeye with the works on it, and they dress it like a hamburger. And you're thinking, that's going to be all right. And then you eat, and you're like, I can't quit eating this thing. It's so weird.
I hated running routes. I liked it because I wanted my other customers when I was the manager that didn't know me, kind of like when I'd come see you or something, when Aaron would be gone or whatever, when he was calling on you. I would want to go because I wanted people to meet me and know, hey, I can call Will if he needs something. And later
Where the hell is Aaron now, by the way?
He's in Oxford, I think.
He's probably...
Or Jackson.
Then this is throwing no shade at anybody. He's probably the best Cisco salesman I've ever had.
He was. Look, I tell people all the time, man. I hadn't talked to Aaron
so good at what he did.
He was so good at what he did.
He caught on so fast, too.
Yep. He was a smart guy, man.
Because he didn't know any of that stuff, and he was like, hey, let me tell you something I've got right here that you need to check out. And I'm like, I'm not really interested. Oh, yeah, that'll be good. Send that next week.
I would tell people all the time, that he was one of the points that I proved that it didn't matter what your degree was. Because he was a damn geologist.
Like a micropaleontologist or some crap like that, like super, super smart.
But if you're a good salesman, you're a good salesman.
He just was good at it.
He was good.
Well, he took care of people. He really took good care of me. And I never felt like I'm bad about, you work all the time and I work all the time. I'm bad about texting somebody at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and then going, why the hell did I do that? They're not at work. Aaron's the one to text you back. I'm like, dude. And Reed's doing that. Like, Reed's selling me some stuff through merchants, and I'm like, I emailed him the other day, and he emailed me immediately back, and I said, look, dude, I specifically emailed you so you didn't have to look at it till Monday. Don't worry about it, But I think he's going to be that kind of salesperson, But it's hard to find that because most of these salespeople now,
It's a different job.
5 o'clock on Friday, they turn the phone off and they're not answering.
It's a different Stafford. It
doesn't bother me because I'm the guy that I'm bad about it, and I feel guilty sometimes for doing that.
My district was one of the most profitable districts that Cisco had, and I had great people working here. And I mean, when I say great people, I don't make it lightly. I mean, I had the best salespeople in the company working for me, and I loved going out and doing this and seeing different people. And this was part of Bruce Quentin's route when I was running it. When I would run it when he would go out of town, and you know, toward the end of my career there, I started sloughing it off on other salespeople and saying, I need y'all to handle these accounts when so and so's out, because I didn't want to do it. But you know, back to Maranta, man, that was a treat for me to be able to come over in this area, because there were just so many cool little places that you could go that you would never, ever, ever go to for any reason. We'd ever come out here to go.
That's the beauty of what I'm doing with this review, is that because I'm traveling not just the state. I'm traveling down in Louisiana, Alabama, and I'm seeing parts of Mississippi that I would have never seen. I'm going, you know, we tend to think of Mississippi as one big small town, and it really is. The culture differs a little. It's a nuanced thing. Like, it seems to be the same, but you go into, especially the northeast part of the state, when you get kind of on the other side of Oxford, it really starts to change. And it reminds me a lot of the Delta when I was a kid. You know, you still have, and of course we're sitting outside Roy's store now, but you don't have many of these left in the Delta. But out in the hills, they're everywhere. Roy stores are everywhere, and they're little mom and pop places that have been there for 40 or 50 years. And they go, our specialty's meatloaf, or they got, we've got the best slug burger.
But this is their Walmart,
right?
For folks out here, this is Walmart.
But it's the same way when you get into that northeast part of Mississippi. Then you get down, you kind of get around Louisville, and you start going south, and it kind of wraps around. It's not fried chicken, it's barbecue. All these gas stations have barbecue, and then you get down in Biloxi and Gulfport, and everywhere you go, they have the gas stations boil crawfish,
got seafood,
fry shrimp, or they do a roast beef style po' boy like in New Orleans po' boy, and it's just like, you realize there's such a difference, but the gas stations are where you see it. You know, you pick it up because there's seafood restaurants everywhere, but you don't see many seafood gas stations here in the Delta. I mean, but you see that when you travel, and I'm seeing stuff that I can't wait to do. We're going to do more Louisiana in 2021, and I'm really excited about going down there and seeing real boudin and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
stuff that you don't get on a daily basis.
Yeah, like you go down to some gas stations down there, and what they have for breakfast every morning at certain times when they're in season is soft shell crab sandwich for breakfast, you know. And I mean, you would never see that anywhere in Mississippi.
No, you wouldn't.
It's like literally 2 pieces of light bread.
You're not gonna pull up to Double Quick and get a soft shell crab sandwich. No.
I mean, catfish, yeah, you get catfish at Double Quick, but that's about the closest seafood as we get.
You get shrimps there.
Shrimps. Did you know that?
I'm the one who put the shrimps on the menu at Double Quick.
You know, shrimps are a proper way of saying it. In the UK, they say shrimps.
Just because the United Kingdom says something doesn't make it gospel. They also have a monarchy in place. They also think that a queen is a deity.
You know, we could talk an hour about how ridiculous all that is.
And we kicked their ass in the Revolutionary War, so I don't give them much credence anymore. Anybody that doesn't say y'all and think that's proper vernacular can kiss my ass.
So I had a young lady that worked for me. Shout out to Kayla, who is from Ohio, and she said, she texted me the other day and texted me y'all, and I said, you were in the South a lot, and she says, we say y'all here, which I didn't know. I thought that was a very Southern thing, but Ohio is kind of like a bellwether state. If they're saying it in Ohio, they're saying it everywhere, aren't they?
If you get outside of cities, and anywhere inside of what I like to call the bread belt of the United States, just straight up and down the middle. You take away the East Coast and the West Coast and some of your northern places. But you get out of the big cities, most people are like us. I mean, I don't travel a lot, but I travel a decent amount, and I've been all over the United States. I've been all over the United States. You go into Northern California.
Oh, it's a total different world. Cowboys everywhere.
Right, but they're just like us, though. They're just simple folks that are just trying to eke out a living, and...
Well, you know what Jeff Foxworthy said? You can go 15 minutes out of any major metropolitan area and you find rednecks. 15 minutes.
Very true. I guess it's their own definition of redneck, but it's all
But that's what he's saying. You wouldn't call them rednecks there, but they're the same.
They're all country folks.
They are.
Right.
And that's both cool and disturbing for a political system at the same time. How different. It's like a wall, and it's just totally different when you get outside that wall.
Different mindsets, man. But
how do you and I'll say this to a lot of people. I'm sure you get it all the time. Run for office and all this, and I'm like, how do you govern that? Like, can it be governed anymore? I don't know, and that's the scary thing. That's about all I'm gonna say about politics. Is, somebody asked me to run for an office the other day, and I was like, I just don't think I want to be in that race because I don't think that we can govern it anymore.
Well, here's the other side.
Not the way we've been doing it.
Years ago, and I was watching the and we won't get on a tangent of politics, but I was watching the debate between Mondale and Reagan. When Reagan got up there and said, "I'm not going to allow y'all to use my opponent's age or a lack of experience against him," because the whole thing was Reagan was too old to be doing this.
So you're never going to believe this.
But they all laughed, and they thought this was the funniest damn thing
even
in the world.
Mondale laughed.
Mondale was laughing his ass off and fixing to get killed in this election.
I literally played that
anymore.
I literally played that for my daughter the other day because there's such a lack of context, and my daughter is my youngest daughter is very. She's raised, I would say, because I don't say I'm Republican or Democrat, but I lean conservative for sure. So she's raised in a conservative lifestyle, but she has this. How come women are not allowed to do this? She says that to me a lot, and I'm like, women can do absolutely anything that they set their mind to. I don't ever want her to think they can't. But also, I see her getting sucked in sometimes to some ways of thinking, and I'm like, what? So I play her a lot of stuff like that, and she thought that was the greatest thing she'd ever heard because she immediately got it. And then I played the clip from Mondale after the election where he said he went home that night and told his wife he'd lose the election because of that line. He knew immediately, and you can see the look on his face is it's over for me.
Well, but he recognized that Reagan was this mythical creature up here, and that that was funny to him. I'm sure he probably went. I'm sure his aides after were like, "Why in the world did you laugh at that joke?" Because he was just over like, "This is fan," and everybody was laughing. And Reagan,
go back and watch that again and look at his face. He was, "My ass is grass." That was the laugh.
You can't. We're in an age now politically where I am a conservative. Do I have some liberal leaning on a few things that I don't agree with? Of course I do. Any decent person that thinks knows there are certain things that are right and they shouldn't be on the political party that you're affiliated with, so you don't have to toe that party line on everything.
Right. Well, that's all I'm saying.
But if I got out here now and I said, I don't agree with something, and it was against a political party,
and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything.
Nowadays, they won't do business with you.
Oh, it's the cancel culture.
They'll think you're an awful person, and I'm going. And so at the end of the day, I have to look at it and go, I know this is right, and I know this is something that should be said, and I shouldn't say it because I have 100-something employees that rely on me to make their paycheck every week.
There's
I can't put me in front of them. That's
the thing I think about all the time. I've got people that literally rely on me for their family's well-being. I got employees with children and stuff, and even if you look at it, let's just say there's a big argument about did somebody steal election or whatever, but let's just say they're pretty even in vote total. Probably you couldn't steal an election if it wasn't pretty close. So you can't look at either one of those groups of people that voted, whether they voted Republican or Democrat, and say that whole group of people are all idiots. Whether it's Biden voters or Trump voters, I don't think you can look at the entire group and go, they're morons. And that's so dangerous.
There are people labeling conservatives, Republicans, as Nazis, as KKK, as
it goes both ways.
Knuckle dragging rednecks, or they say that liberals are libtards, or
right.
that they
every one of them.
They don't understand. And you're saying that about a generalization of 70+ million Americans. You're saying that
either way you go.
And I had a friend of mine say the other day, he's a liberal, and he said something about all liberals are Nazi, fascist. and they're all racist. And I went, you do realize that Trump got double-digit support from African Americans?
Are they racist?
Yeah. I don't understand it. Are they do they hate themselves? I didn't understand the comment, and I said, that's insanity.
You can never say all. There was a conservative black guy used to be on the radio, and his one line that I liked was, you can never say all. And that's the thing I think we've gotten to, is that, no matter if you take any kind of side, well, then that means, if you should believe this, that means this, and it's just not true. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all you and I are trying to say. It's a scary time, man, but at the same time, and I'll say this, and we're going to try to wrap it up, but I look at it like the invention of the printing press. We were talking about social media. All of a sudden, anybody could get a Bible, and that revolutionized the world, the modern world that we know, particularly the European world,
Sure.
Because you had these pastors up there, preachers, and really Catholic priests that had been saying, this is what the Bible said, and then all of a sudden people could get the Bible, and they say, wait a minute, that ain't what this says, so what else are they? And it almost destroyed the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And it caused the Reformation and all this other stuff. I think and it was really, if you think about it, some real growing pains for the world. Same thing is happening now. It's so much information, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, and some people are drowning in it. Mm-hmm. And it's some growing pains that hopefully will bring about good things, because a lot of good things happened to the Catholic Church after that happened.
It's almost like this, now, and there's a lot of 2A talk right now, so your Second Amendment rights. And so it's gotten so bad to where they're not even saying, hey, look, do you need something? Do you really need this particular weapon? Do you really need this particular magazine? Now it's like, I want everything. If I'm 2A, I want to be able to drive a M1 Abrams tank down the highway if I want it. And then there's the people out there that go, you shouldn't even be able to have an air pistol.
Yeah.
There's no gray area anymore. And so it's either you are or you aren't.
But,
and that's
do you get this feeling, though,
now.
It's just those people are really loud, and there really are a big group of people in the middle that go, I really don't agree with them, and I really don't agree with them either. Because sometimes that's how I feel. There was, Glenn Beck wrote a book a while back called The Overton Window.
I read it.
And of course, that Overton window idea has been around forever, and it is the Overton window along any line with the Second Amendment, what it moves back and forth. And it's like it's broken. The window's broken, and there's these two factions, and I really think there's a bunch of people in the middle. Some of them voted for Trump, some of them voted for Biden, that go, I really don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just tired of this,
The problem is your loudest voices are your media right now, and they control the narrative. So if you've got a left-leaning station like CNN or MSNBC, they're on there, and 90% of their commentators, there's no bones about it. They think that every Republican in the world
and they have an agenda.
Is a knuckle-dragging redneck that's wanting to go shoot up a school or something crazy. And then you've got your right-wing media that is all liberals are morons and they're stupid and they don't understand anything and they want to take all of our guns and all these other things away. But they're the loudest voices, so it drowns out anybody in the middle.
Well, then then you get social media that can refute any of that at will, and it's just a big-ass mess right now.
Or they can dox them, or they can remove them.
Well, yeah, that's what that...
Removing people's ability to speak. We've lost our sense in this country where it's not yelling fire in the middle of a crowded movie theater. It's, I don't want you to say anything that could possibly offend me, period. And if you do, I'm going to stop doing business with you. I'm going to dox you. I'm going to find out where you live, and I'm going to shut you down. That is scary.
Did you see where the founder of Twitter is even a little worried about this? He's like, I've kind of lost. He didn't say this, but you kind of got the idea from some of his latest interviews. He's kind of lost control of this ban, but like he's not the one doing this. He set up this bureaucracy and he can't stop it now. And it's like I've lost control of.
He's got people censoring. There are people censoring things now that
he doesn't even have control over them anymore.
Doesn't have anything to do with inciting violence or anything else. It's just that person censoring it didn't like what you had to say, and you are moving the pendulum to an area where, as liberals,
It's scary.
Friends of mine that are liberals, that used to be the liberal platform was, you can say and do anything you want whenever you want it. And the conservatives were more like,
as long as it doesn't hurt somebody. Yeah.
And the more conservatives were like, we don't want you to say these things because this is wrong, or we don't teach this, or we don't preach this, or whatever else. And it's like it's flipped.
I think a lot of this is flipped. I tell you, there's a great newsletter I read the other day that is, there is no more, and this is totally changing the subject, but there is no more fiscal conservatives left. There are no fiscal conservatives.
No.
In the Republican Party or anywhere else for that matter. And that's what, if I was Republican in any way, that was it. And they have totally lost control of that. There is no, did you know, and this scares the hell out of me, 41% of every dollar ever printed was printed last year. That's like, like, who do you support if you're fiscally conservative? Who do you support?
It's my, well, and you've got to realize.
Can we sustain that?
You just said it with politicians, and you were a politician. And I am on a very small scale, but politicians look at one thing, and you can get caught up in it. One thing and one thing only. Re-election, and am I going to keep my power? And they don't.
Well,
care
that's what
how
I mean.
They don't care how they keep it. They don't care. That's the crazy part to me, and that's why I think, number one, and we're getting off on a tangent, but number one, if people actually sat down and you took a face away and you took a party away from what this person is, and just said, this is what this person believes, you would probably have a complete mindset change on, that's actually what I think.
Well, we all probably agree on 80%.
You're so caught up in what political party they're in, you don't do any research on what they're about. And we don't have term limits for most politicians. We just go,
so being an elected official, I say this about term limits because I go back and forth on what I believe. So I come into the job as judge with no experience as a judge. Nobody ever comes into a judge's job with experience as a judge. You might have a law background, but you don't have being a judge and being a lawyer are two different things.
It's a totally different thing.
And so having other judges that were around, that'd been around a while, that I could go talk to was huge. So, there is something to be said for some seniority and having, but I'm on the outset, I would say I'm for, particularly in Congress, term limits. But it's like, so I'm on school board at North Sunflower Academy, and I'm the longest. I've been on there longer than anybody else, and I've tried to get off. Like, I don't even want to do it anymore, But every now and then an issue will come up, and I'll say, y'all remember when this happened? Nobody remembers it. I'm not the one that remembers, because I've been there so long.
True.
And I'll go, well, this is what happened 17 years ago, and this is what we did. And it totally changes the discussion, because now we have some context of how to deal with this. So there's some benefit to having people that have seen, and you start thinking about things like national security and things like that. I do worry that you got a bunch of folks that don't know what the hell is going on in there, or what's happened in the past, or have that context. So how do you keep one or two? Because we have a 95% re-election rate in Congress. That is insane. Nobody likes Congress, and you have a 95% re-election rate. So how do you get some new blood in there? You obviously, so it's that balance. Because I've also seen on the other side of that, people come on the school board that have never been on the school board before with fresh ideas, and that also changed the discussion too. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. So I go back and forth on, I really think we need to get rid of some of these old folks that have been there too long. But
I just, there's got to come a time and a place where somebody that has been there, you've got to have some fresh ideas and some fresh blood in there at some point, because
at what point do you sit there and go, I've been here long enough? Because I've definitely felt that as judge. The pressure was for me to run again. The pressure was, Stafford, you need to run again. But I knew I had run my course, and I had gotten to that point where I felt it, Will. I was like, if I stay, I will not do as good a job as I've done in the past, because I've been there too long. Like, I knew that.
How many times do we have to listen to a politician say, I'm here and I'm gonna make education better, and I'm gonna make the roads better, and I'm gonna make the economy better, and I'm gonna make this better.
And they don't do any of it.
And they run their 4-year course, and then at the end of that 4 years, what do they get up there and say? I'm gonna make education better, I'm gonna make the roads better, and I'm gonna make the economy better. And you're like, what the hell you been doing for the last 4 years? Well, I just hadn't had enough time. When is enough time to get stuff done? Because in a business, if you have an owner of a company, and you can't make promises too many times or you're out of business.
That's right.
You can't look at your employees and say, I'm going to do this for y'all, and then don't do it.
Take a football coach.
And then 10 years later, you look up and go, we're going to do this again. No. You're just like a football coach. You're exactly right. If you don't adapt to the situation, you lose.
Or how fast did they fire Pruitt at Tennessee? You know, they said, you've been messing up? Gone.
Look at the University of Mississippi, man. They go through coaches like dirty underwear because every year they think, we're fixing to win a national championship. And the year they don't win one, they're like, this guy's got to go. He's a terrible coach. He's not a terrible coach. You know, but y'all get rid of him before he can do anything. But that's the way it should be. You're not performing your job to the duties that you're expected to perform them, but that is negated when it comes to politics.
I know this is changing the subject, but I will say this. I don't feel sorry for these coaches that get fired because they are making buku money. I mean,
give me $5 million for one season. Bye.
And look, I'm gonna tell you this: I ain't gonna probably lose that many games because I know well enough to know I'm gonna have to surround myself with some people, that can do something. But yeah, if you make that kind of money and you don't perform, you don't need to stay there.
No, I mean that's an.
But just the same thing, the congressmen
that's in any business in the world, though, Staff.
Congressmen, senators, whatever, they go and they are broke when they get there. And they stay there for 40 years, and they come out and they worth $10 or $15 million, and you're thinking, wait a minute,
how did you do that? Right.
Something's not right about that
How did you which a congressman or a senator's salary is good money? Not on the state level, but on the federal level.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Phenomenal money.
But they got to have a house here, and then they got to have a house there.
You've never been in business. You've never had a big paying job, any of this stuff. And then you all of a sudden are making $140,000 a year. And you're in there for 20 years. And you get out and you got a $3.5 million house sitting somewhere. And you're like.
Even Bernie Sanders, who's like.
Oh, well, don't get me on that guy.
But I mean, he's supposedly, And you just look at it and you go. I mean, you know who the wealthiest congressman I think is now? Or who's made the most money? I think is Benny Thompson. He's like one of the wealthiest ones from where he went into what he's doing now. You know who one of the other wealthiest ones was Trent Lott. I mean, it's both parties. I'm not blaming
there's no doubt. I don't look at the political system. If somebody's been in office for more than 10 years and then all of a sudden they get out there a millionaire, I go, that guy's a crook. I'm sorry. There's no other way to say it. What did you do? You didn't get paid a bonus for being a good congressman. You didn't get paid a bonus for being a good senator. How did you amass this wealth off of the salary you had and the expenses that you had?
You know what? We're going to have to go eat. No, we're not going to get
Let's go.
Oh, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Hey, man.
I think it's going to be good. I can't wait to get it out there. But also, if you're listening to the podcast, you need to check us out. We're fixing to eat at Roy's store, so you're going to have to go watch television.
Well, with this podcast, you know what the white stuff on top of chicken shit is?
Chicken shit.
Chicken shit, too.